Everything Marcus built crumbled because someone believed they deserved more than gratitude could offer. Welcome to True Tone Stories, where powerful lessons unfold through compelling narratives. Marcus lived the kind of life that didn't demand attention but earned quiet respect. He and his wife, Grace, occupied a comfortable middle ground, not wealthy, not struggling, just steady. Their rented apartment sat in a respectable neighborhood where bills arrived on schedule and were paid the same way. Marcus made his living supplying construction materials. Cement, steel rods, tiles, paint. Builders knew his name, contractors trusted his word, and his modest shop generated reliable income month after month. The work was honest, the rewards consistent. Grace managed their home with calm efficiency. She didn't work outside, but nothing was ever lacking. Their kitchen stayed stocked, their lives moved without constant crisis, and she carried herself with the confidence of a woman whose household ran smoothly. Every December, as the dry season settled over the city, Marcus felt a familiar pull toward home. Christmas meant returning to the village, and no trip felt complete without a special gift for Aunt Linda. Aunt Linda wasn't someone who raised him or dramatically shaped his path. She was simply the cheerful relative from his father's side who used to slip him candy as a child. That small gesture had somehow cemented itself in his memory so firmly that even decades later, he felt compelled to honor it. So every Christmas Marcus went overboard. Designer handbags that she'd show off at community gatherings. Beautiful fabrics folded with care. Shoes, jewelry, perfumes, items that made her the envy of neighbors who watched from their compounds, whispering about his generosity. Aunt Linda reveled in the attention. She'd laugh loudly, embrace him dramatically, then parade through the village announcing, "My nephew is truly blessed. Look what God has done through him." Marcus never questioned the tradition. Making her happy simply felt right. Then came the difficult year. Despite everything pressing against him, business setbacks, unexpected losses, investments that collapsed without warning, Marcus still made the December journey. Tradition mattered too much to abandon, even when money moved differently than before. But this time his car arrived lighter. No stacks of shopping bags. No wrapped packages drawing curious stares. Between a shipment lost at sea and a partnership that dissolved overnight, Marcus had spent months stabilizing rather than growing. He remained comfortable, but expansion had become survival. Still, arriving empty-handed felt impossible. After days of searching, he settled on a quality wristwatch, attractive but modest, and hoped understanding would fill the gap. When Aunt Linda rushed out to greet them, her smile stretched wide as always. "Marcus, my Christmas blessing." He hugged her warmly, though his heart beat unevenly with anticipation. Later, pulling her aside, he presented the small box. "Aunt Linda, please accept this. This year tested us. Business faced challenges I didn't expect. Next year will be better, I promise." She opened the box, studied the watch, then smiled slowly. "It's lovely. Thank you." But something in her eyes shifted. Throughout the holiday, Aunt Linda maintained her usual warmth. She laughed at the right moments, stayed close to Marcus during gatherings, and whenever visitors appeared, she'd lift the watch box proudly. "See what my nephew brought me this Christmas." Yet when the guests departed, her expression would harden. Her jaw would tighten. Her eyes would narrow with something that looked uncomfortably like resentment. A watch. After years of designer bags and expensive fabrics. After all the times I boasted about his generosity. This is what I receive now. The bitterness grew quietly, hidden beneath courtesy, until the day Marcus prepared to leave. Before departing, he called her aside once more. "Aunt Linda, thank you for everything." He pressed an envelope into her hand, 20,000 naira. "Please accept this. I know it's not much, but things will improve." Her eyes widened briefly at the unexpected cash, and genuine gratitude flickered across her face. She hugged him tightly. But then the watch came back to mind. The imagined whispers. Aunt Linda's nephew must be struggling now. Maybe she's not as important to him anymore. Those thoughts burned hotter than his kindness. She smiled, waved as the family drove away, then let the expression die the moment their car disappeared down the dusty road. That night, when the village settled into darkness, Aunt Linda gathered the watch, the cash, and dried leaves she kept hidden in her kitchen. Behind her house, under a pale, indifferent moon, she cleared a small patch of earth. She arranged the leaves, placed the watch on top, and spread the money around it like an offering. Her hands trembled, not with fear but with indignation. "Manage?" she whispered bitterly. "After everything, this is what he brings me." She struck a match. The flame caught quickly. Entitlement burns easily. As the fire crackled, she knelt, eyes blazing. With this burning, Let his blessings burn. Let his business scatter like these ashes. Let customers turn away. Let disappointment follow him until he understands what it means to disappoint someone who deserves better. The fire hissed. The watch twisted into black metal. The cash curled into nothing. Let his wealth dry up. Let everything he touches fail. She spat into the flames. When the fire died, she stood slowly, breathing hard, satisfied. Far away in the city, Marcus unlocked his door, stepped into his peaceful home and exhaled with relief. He had no idea something had followed him back. The first signs appeared 2 weeks later, but Marcus didn't recognize them as warnings. January always moved slowly. Builders recovered from holiday spending. Customers delayed purchases. He told himself this was normal seasonality. But days passed and the shop remained eerily quiet. Regular clients who used to stop by constantly simply disappeared. Women who insisted on buying only from him now crossed the street without glancing inside. Some greeted him warmly, promised to return soon, then never came back. Marcus spent long hours behind his counter watching dust settle on cement bags that used to sell out by noon. His workers leaned against walls with nothing to do, whispering confusion. At home, Grace noticed the change before he mentioned it. Marcus returned later each evening, exhausted despite accomplishing nothing. His appetite faded. Sometimes he'd sit staring at nothing long after dinner. Grace didn't pressure him. She listened, reassured him gently, reminded him of past slow seasons that eventually recovered. Then a long-standing client called saying he couldn't pay his debt in full. That money was meant for restocking. That night, Marcus sat on their bed in silence, shoulders heavy. Grace sat beside him, rubbing his back slowly. "We'll manage together." But the problems multiplied. The landlord raised their rent without warning. The generator broke down. Thieves somehow broke into the shop and stole valuable materials. Even the police responded with pity rather than action. Marcus felt as though trouble was deliberately hunting him. Bills piled up. Savings evaporated. Grace started stretching meals without mentioning it. She stopped buying things for herself, sold small personal items, and hid the money so Marcus wouldn't feel the weight of it. Nothing improved. Side deals collapsed. New suppliers refused him. Old partners avoided his calls. Slowly, painfully, Marcus began selling things he'd considered permanent. First the second vehicle. Then land he'd saved years to purchase. Grace never protested. She stood beside him even when exhaustion showed in her eyes. Eventually, furniture left their home. Then the generator. The apartment grew emptier, quieter. Neighbors watched from distance. Friends stopped calling. Marcus lost weight. Some nights he sat on the floor, back against the wall, asking himself where everything went wrong. Grace would sit with him, silent but present, refusing to let him face the darkness alone. The day Marcus sold the shop broke something inside him. He stood outside for a long time after handing over the keys, staring at the building that once held everything he'd worked toward. That shop had fed his family. It had given him dignity. Now it belonged to someone else. With nothing left to hold on to, Marcus made the hardest decision. Together, he and Grace packed what remained of their lives and decided to move back to the village. The morning they headed to the transport park felt heavy, as though the sky itself grieved with them. Marcus and Grace sat on a worn wooden bench, each carrying a single bag, waiting for the next bus heading east. Other travelers gathered around them. Traders, students, mothers with sleeping children. Life continued, but for Marcus, everything sounded distant, muffled. Then an elderly man arrived. Tall, thin, with silver hair and sharp but tired eyes. His traditional wrapper was neatly tied, and he walked with a carved wooden staff. Marcus noticed him only because the man paused directly in front of him, staring, not casually but with intention, as though he'd been searching for Marcus for years. "Young man," the elder said quietly. "Stand up." Marcus blinked. "Sir, do I know you?" The man didn't answer. He simply gestured for Marcus to step aside. Even Grace looked confused as Marcus followed the elder a few steps away from the crowd. The moment they stood face to face, the elder sighed deeply. "Your suffering is not ordinary." Marcus froze. The elder continued, voice steady and sorrowful. "You think you're going to the village to find peace. But if you enter that village today, you will complete what the curse started." Marcus's heart thudded sharply. "Curse? What curse?" The elder looked at him with eyes that carried centuries of knowing. "A curse placed on you by someone you trusted." Marcus staggered back, chest tightening. "How? Who?" The elder lifted his staff slightly. "The moment my eyes met yours, I saw your downfall. Your wealth didn't vanish naturally. It was pushed away. Your customers didn't leave voluntarily. They were driven. Everything you built was scattered by words spoken with fire. He paused. The person will be revealed later. Marcus's throat went dry. What do I do? I've lost everything. We're going back because we have nowhere else. No, the elder said firmly. You must not travel today. Grace, who'd been listening, stood up slowly, fear crossing her face. Sir, why shouldn't we travel? The elder turned to her gently. Because the land you're returning to is where the curse was planted. If he goes back now empty-handed, the curse will complete itself. Things will become worse. Marcus felt his legs weaken. But I sold my shop. I sold everything. I have nothing to return to. The elder stepped closer. Your shop is where your wealth began. Your sweat is buried in that ground. Your destiny touched that soil. That place knows your name. Until you return to it, nothing will rise again. Marcus swallowed hard. What must I do? The elder pointed his staff toward the road. Go back to that shop. Even if another man owns it now, stand in front of it. Bend down. Take a handful of sand from the ground. Only a handful. Hold it tight. The instructions felt strange, but the elder's presence radiated undeniable authority. When you get home, he continued, pray over that sand. Speak life, not fear. Speak restoration, not failure. Tell the sand to return everything that left you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Will it work? The elder smiled faintly. Your downfall came from spoken words. Your restoration will come the same way. Marcus stood there trembling, broken, confused, but with a flicker of hope he hadn't felt in months. The elder touched his shoulder gently. Turn back. Do not board that bus. Your journey is not to the village, but back to your beginning. With that, he walked away slowly, silently, leaving Marcus and Grace standing breathless in the middle of the park. Marcus and Grace stood frozen long after the elder disappeared into the morning crowd. Finally, Grace exhaled shakily. Marcus, we can't ignore this. He nodded slowly. His heart pounded, but clarity was settling inside him, something he hadn't felt in months. They picked up their bags and quietly stepped away from the bus park. The journey back to their neighborhood felt surreal. Grace kept glancing at him, searching his face for fear or doubt. But what she found was determination, fragile, shaky, but present. When they reached the street where his former shop stood, Marcus stopped at the corner. The new owner had already replaced the signboard. Fresh paint covered where his old logo used to hang. His heart tightened painfully. This used to be mine, he whispered. Grace touched his arm gently. It will be yours again. One way or another. They approached quietly. The new owner, a middle-aged man with a friendly face, recognized Marcus immediately. Ah, Mr. Marcus. Good afternoon. How are things? I need a favor, Marcus said softly. Just a small one. The man paused, surprised by the seriousness in his voice. Anything I can help with? I need to take sand from in front of the shop. The man nodded without hesitation and stepped aside. Marcus walked to the entrance, tears gathering in his eyes. Grace stood nearby, praying silently. He knelt slowly. With trembling fingers, he scooped a handful of sand from the ground. He held it tightly in his palm as if holding a piece of his former self. The moment he stood up, something warm washed over him, like invisible hands lifting a burden from his shoulders. He couldn't explain it. He just felt lighter. They thanked the shop owner and left. On the walk home, Grace finally spoke. Marcus, do you believe this will work? He looked at her, eyes shining with the first real hope he'd felt in almost a year. I don't know, he said honestly. But I believe God sent that elder. And if this is the path to restoration, then I'll walk it. When they reached home, Marcus didn't rest. He didn't eat. He went straight to their bedroom, closed the door, poured the sand onto his palm again and fell to his knees. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply. Then he began to pray, not with fear, not with desperation, but with authority. With this sand I call back everything I lost. My customers return. My income return. My favor return. Whatever was pushed away from me, I command it to come back. Grace knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. Let restoration begin, she whispered. Marcus repeated it, voice stronger. Let restoration begin. And somewhere beyond what their eyes could see, something shifted. A door opened. A chain broke. A journey reversed. The curse that once pushed everything away had met the beginning of its end. The room felt different after the prayer, lighter, warmer, as if silent heaviness had lifted from the air. Marcus remained on his knees for a long time, breathing deeply, palms still closed around the sand. Grace stayed beside him, hands trembling, whispering, "Amen. Amen," like someone watering dry ground with hope. Restoration didn't come with thunder. It came gently, almost quietly. The first sign arrived the next morning. Marcus's phone rang at 7:15 in the morning, the first early morning call he'd received in months. He stared at it, confused. Calls usually came only from creditors or wrong numbers. But this time it was a familiar voice. "Mr. Marcus, please. Do you still have that material? The imported one?" Marcus blinked. It was a customer who'd abandoned him long ago. "I have it," Marcus replied, though technically he didn't. He no longer had a shop. "Perfect. I need 2 units. 2. Not 1. When the call ended, Marcus just sat there quietly, processing what had happened. Grace watched him, heart beating faster. "Who was that?" "A customer," he said, voice shaking slightly. "Someone who hasn't called me in almost a year." That day 3 more customers called. People he thought had forgotten he existed. Some asked for quotes. Some wanted samples. One even apologized for disappearing. Marcus kept staring at his phone as if it had woken from death. By the 3rd day, money began trickling in again. He used advance payments to order goods. Small sales at first, then bigger ones as word spread that Marcus was back in business. He didn't have a shop yet, but he worked from home, using his living room as temporary storage. And strangely, everything he touched seemed to move. A contractor bought in bulk. A woman recommended him to her sister. 2 former customers asked for old prices and bought immediately when he agreed. Grace watched all this unfold with growing disbelief. She cooked with more joy. She smiled more. She even started adding meat back into their meals, something she'd quietly removed during the difficult months. "Marcus," she said softly one evening, This isn't ordinary. Something has changed." He nodded, tears gathering. "I feel it too." But the most shocking moment came exactly 1 week after the prayer. The new owner of Marcus's former shop knocked at their door. "Mr. Marcus," he said, scratching his head awkwardly, "please come and take back your shop." Marcus froze. The man continued. "Since you left, business has refused to move. Customers complain. Something feels wrong. I can't survive there. Please, take it back. Just refund me slowly whenever you can." Marcus and Grace stared at him, speechless. It was too perfect, too direct, too aligned with what the elder had instructed. Grace covered her mouth, tears streaming. Marcus felt his knees weaken. "Sir, are you certain?" The man nodded quickly. "I can't stay there anymore. That shop belongs to you. It knows your spirit." Marcus sank onto his sofa, overwhelmed. Grace cried beside him, this time with joy instead of sorrow. Restoration hadn't just begun. It was moving fast, catching up to everything he'd lost, returning piece by piece, blessing by blessing. 1 month later, the elder returned. On a calm evening, exactly 1 month after Marcus's business began to breathe again, Marcus was outside rinsing cement dust off his hands when he saw the elder standing by the gate, like someone who didn't need permission to enter. "Sir," Marcus called, startled. "You've returned." The elder nodded slowly. "Yes, because you deserve to know what truly happened to you." Marcus led him to the veranda and offered him a chair. The elder sat, rested his staff beside him, and looked Marcus straight in the eyes. "You thought your downfall was just business circumstances," he began. "You thought customers simply changed their minds. But listen carefully. What happened was not ordinary. It was arranged." Marcus's chest tightened. "That Christmas," the elder continued, "you went to the village with a lighter hand, not because you were unkind but because the year had been difficult. You gave your aunt a watch and added 20,000 naira, speaking gently, 'Accept this. Next year will be better.' She smiled. She hugged you. She accepted the money." The elder paused, then lowered his voice. "But that same night, when the compound slept, she carried the watch and the cash to her backyard. She burned them both, not to celebrate, but to curse what you gave her and use it as a point of contact." Marcus's eyes widened. "She spoke words into that fire," the elder said. "Words that called failure into your business. Words that pushed customers away. Words that scattered your favor. When you wondered why people entered your shop and suddenly changed their minds, it wasn't because your products were inferior. Something was turning their hearts. When debts refused to come in, when contracts collapsed, when thieves succeeded easily, it was because doors that used to open for you were being locked spiritually." Marcus stood up abruptly, anger and pain flooding him. "My aunt did that? Linda?" The elder nodded. "Yes. Entitlement is dangerous. Some people don't measure love, they measure gifts. The 1 year you reduced became an unforgivable offense in her heart. Marcus paced, frustrated. But I've always done more than enough. Every year. I never went empty-handed. So because 1 year was difficult, she chose to destroy me? The elder's voice remained calm but heavy. That is why I came, to show you that your suffering wasn't from lack of effort. It was from the wrong person carrying your name in her mouth. Marcus stopped pacing, eyes wet, breathing hard, hurt deeper than anger. So what now? He whispered. The elder remained seated, eyes steady on Marcus, as if weighing how much truth the man could carry at once. From this point, he said quietly, you must not stop praying. Marcus looked at him, confused. Praying for what exactly? For preservation. For separation. For the final severing of what followed you. He picked up his staff and tapped it lightly on the floor. What happened to you did not end when business returned. When evil is exposed, it must be fully uprooted, or it looks for another way back. Marcus swallowed hard. You will pray, the elder continued, not with anger, not with revenge, but with firmness. Every day, morning and night, you will declare that no word spoken against you will stand. That no bitterness tied to your name will survive. Marcus nodded slowly. And in 1 week, the elder added, voice lowering, you will hear news from the village. Marcus stiffened. What kind of news? The elder didn't flinch. Your aunt will not be given another chance. There will be no public confession. No apology. No reversal. Some doors close permanently when wickedness is deliberate. Marcus's face tightened with pain. I don't want her harmed. I never wished her evil. And that, the elder replied gently, is why you must stay away from what happens next. He leaned forward slightly. When the time comes, her body will be found in the open. Nature will have already begun its work, not as punishment from man, but as a sign that judgment has already passed. Grace, who'd been listening silently from the doorway, let out a small gasp. Marcus shook his head slowly. So that's it. That is it, the elder said. Some people don't lose because they're poor. They lose because entitlement made them blind. And blindness has consequences. He stood up slowly. When you hear the news, he said, do not travel. Do not ask questions. Do not mourn publicly or privately. Your role ended the day you obeyed. Marcus's voice trembled. Will this truly be the end? The elder nodded once. Yes. And when it ends, your life will stabilize fully. The cycle will close. He turned toward the gate, paused, and added one final sentence. Let this teach you something. Not everyone who smiles at your blessing is happy when it reduces. Then he walked out. Marcus remained seated long after the gate closed, heart heavy, hands trembling, praying not out of fear anymore but out of understanding. Exactly 1 week later, the call came. Marcus was inside his shop, standing between stacks of cement, when his phone rang. The number carried the village code. His heart didn't race. It didn't skip. It simply sank into quiet knowing. He stepped outside and answered. Marcus, the voice said, shaky and low. We thought you should hear it from us. There was a brief silence on the line, heavy and uncomfortable. Your Aunt Linda, her body was found this morning. Marcus closed his eyes slowly. How? He asked, voice steady. We don't understand it. She was found outside the village path. Nature had already. People saw her when it was too late. Nobody knows what happened. There were no signs. Just that. Marcus said nothing for a long moment. The elder's words replayed in his mind with chilling accuracy. Exactly 1 week. I understand, Marcus finally said quietly. Thank you for calling. He ended the call and stood there, breathing in the dusty air of his shop. There was no shock left in him. No tears. No anger. Only a deep, sober stillness. He did not travel to the village. He did not call relatives. He did not announce it to friends. He mourned neither privately nor publicly, not because he was heartless but because he'd been warned. Some outcomes were not meant to be carried emotionally. Some endings were consequences, not losses. That night, Marcus prayed, not for her, not for explanations, but for protection. That no bitterness, no entitlement, no misplaced loyalty would ever again find space in his life. As weeks passed, his life continued to stabilize. Business returned fully. Contractors resumed work. Cement moved steadily. Orders became predictable again. Money flowed with order, not chaos. The panic that once lived in his chest disappeared quietly. At home, peace settled back in. Grace smiled more freely. Laughter returned, soft and natural. Meals were no longer eaten in silence. They didn't rush to recover everything at once. They rebuilt slowly, wisely, intentionally. Marcus never spoke publicly about what happened, but the lesson stayed with him forever. Kindness must be guarded. Entitlement is dangerous. And some warnings, when ignored, end without mercy. Life moved on. And this time it moved forward, steadily, quietly, and free. This story serves as a powerful reminder to anyone who gives freely. Kindness without wisdom can expose you to danger. Not everyone you bless understands seasons. Some people only measure your value by what you bring them. The moment your giving reduces, entitlement replaces gratitude. Learn to guard your generosity. Not everyone deserves the same access to your life. Give from love, but never from pressure or expectation. Accept that some relationships survive only on benefits, not affection. Protect your peace. Choose boundaries. And remember, generosity is a gift, not a debt anyone can claim from you. Thank you for listening to True Tone Stories. If this narrative resonated with you, please hit the like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that teach timeless lessons.